if you were listening before, you'll know that Aymen is now actually in sports journalism. So how did you, obviously you spoke a lot about kind of what pulled you out of academia, and you mentioned before you've always had a passion for sports and writing. How did you practically make that move? Because I know that for a lot of people, going from kind of one area to another is like of career is sometimes a little bit daunting. They don't know how to do it. For me personally as well, like because we had a similar trajectory, as I was saying, I'm in tech now. But just because there's no so personal stake, personal stake in that. But for me, it was very, very much like you're lucky because you had something else to fall back on, like another passion. Whereas for me, as soon as I realised that academia, I couldn't do it, like, well, for right now anyway, I was like, because that's what I'd only ever wanted to do in my life. I was then in a position where I was like, okay, what do I do then? You know, all my life I only ever thought I was going to do academia. What do I do now? So I literally I just applied to anything. And that's how I ended up where I am now. And it's not, I can't say I'm passionate, it's just something to pay the bills right now. But you did end up doing something that you're passionate about. So how did you practically make that like change?
So I sort of, well, I didn't know anyone in journalism. And when I graduated, there was one. She's actually my mentor from BBC Sport, Miriam Walker Khan, and she'd put a tweet out whilst I was at Cambridge, being like, and this was after I decided I was like, right, I want to do sports journalism. She was like, are there any young South Asian girls looking to go into sports journalism? Like, DM me. So I DM'd her and she set up this chat.
Wait, so did you say this was before or after you decided you wanted to?
After I decided.
Oh, what
I know. What a coincidence. I know.
That's God, bro.
Yeah, literally. And then she had put in the chat that there was this magazine that I write for called Season Zine. And they were looking to commission a piece about focusing on black photographers who were shooting in and around football spaces. So that was my first ever commission. And I'd started it, but it was a few months until it had like come out and stuff. I ended up graduating and literally got rejected, was applying for jobs, got rejected from like 90 jobs. I'm not even joking. Like,
it was like that. It was
so
like
many
that.
jobs, and I was honestly.
So was it all journalism jobs you were applying for?
No, everything, all sorts.
Okay.
I didn't even get a job at like Starbucks, like down the road from my house, and it was like £4 an hour, which is not like minimum wage, and I didn't even get that, and I was like, honestly, was at such a low point. I was like, oh my God, like what am I going to do?
It was also such a typical graduate experience. Like I feel like most of my friends who we all graduated at the same time, like everyone went through that. Like so many people went through it, I think.
Yeah, 100%. And it was so difficult because it just feels quite isolating when it's just happening to you, and then you're seeing like everyone else like doing like amazing things and like stuff like that, and it's so difficult to sort of like detach yourself from that sort of comparison. And then I think so the first thing I got after I graduated was an internship at an organisation called Women in Journalism, and absolutely loved them. Like it was so good. I met so many incredible journalists from there. And then after that I got onto a mentoring programme, and I was being mentored by an ITV producer, and she was really, really helpful. And then this opportunity came up with another organisation called BComs, and it stands for Black Collective of Media and Sport, and they were doing a scholarship for young or aspiring journalists who wanted to study for their NCTJ. And I was like, oh my God, this is perfect. And it was in collaboration with Chelsea Foundation.
Oh, okay.
So I had applied for it, and honestly, like by that point, I was like,
I'd take anything.
Do you know what I mean? I was just like,
give us a crumb.
Literally, honestly, I was like, but in my head, I was like, I'm gonna get rejected from it. Or I did not expect anything. I was also at the time, I got a job in like a cafe that was like so far away from my house. I had to travel every day just so I could like make some money. And like, I didn't, do you know what I mean? You don't want to feel like you're just sitting at home doing nothing.
It's so much pressure. I think that immediate postgraduate period.
Never again. Don't ever want to do it again. Did not like it.
Yeah, I can't relate. I was unemployed for like 10 months and I didn't feel a single. See, I told you I'm unserious. You know how you say you did 90? I did like 7 applications. Yeah, I didn't. I was like, I'm relaxing. It's soft life. Leave me alone. So I'm sat here now. Something really hard. I'm like, I wish I could relate.
Oh, I hated it. I hated every second of it. And then I also had this job that I had to get up at like 4:45 for to go to work. And
you're really God's strongest soul, you know. Goodness.
I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And like, by the time I'd finish, it'd take me ages to get home. And then I'd like start doing job applications. I'd like want to go to bed because I'd have to be up again like at 4. Anyways, I'm in a meeting with my mentor, and this notification pops up from the BCom's scholarship thing, and I'd got an interview. And I broke down in tears. I was like, oh my God, it's like
it was just that break that you needed, innit?
Yeah, exactly. And honestly, it was just about like having that resilience. I don't know where I found it from, to be honest, but you've just got to keep going. And then had the interview. Do you know what I mean?
Because you're there talking about resilience, I'm nodding my head like I pretend that I could relate. There was one guy, he tweeted like, you know, I applied to 200 jobs and finally I got the right one. Yeah. And I like quote tweeted, and I was like, my guy, I'm happy for you, but me, I can do 3 rejections max. And I'm done. I'm retired. Arranged marriage. Send me back home if you need to, but I'm not applying for another job after the 3rd one. But resilience. That's the key. Resilience. I need to stop, because one day God will show me. God will force me to see what resilience is, because me, I'm just... Anyways.
Oh my God. No, honestly, it was hell. I would not wish that on my worst enemy.
Yeah.
Hated it. Anyways, ended up getting this scholarship with UComs. Oh my God, then I started doing my NCTJ, but...
What's that?
So it's the it's like a course that you've got to have if you're a journalist.
Okay.
So it's like an accreditation, and you sort of learn like media law, you learn like shorthand and all this stuff.
So was it long? Was it?
Yeah, it was a fast track course. So basically, the course in itself was like not the most welcoming environment, let's just say for now. Anyway, so yeah, did the course, met some incredible people, loved it, and then ended up applying for a job at BBC Sport and got that, and then now here I am. But actually, to be fair, the first piece that I got like published online, not in a magazine, was so I had one of my bosses put in a word for me for the owner, and it's an online Instagram publication called Versus. And they do like... Versus, oh my God, love them. Absolutely love them. And they commissioned me to write a piece on Zidane Iqbal's debut for Manchester United, the first like South Asian person to make a debut. Lit. Didn't even know, but the piece blew up like... Really? And I was like, oh my God, I did not even... And it was like my first piece of like journalism. Ended up getting nominated for an award.
Lit.
Yeah.
But that's like the sign you need, isn't it? Because I can imagine it must have been so nerve-wracking making that change, question if it's the right thing. And God's like, it's the right thing.
Yeah.
That's sick.
And then, but yeah, so I had that. That was like my sort of like breakthrough. And then after that, then people were like, or then I'd like pitch to places and like it get accepted and stuff like that. And that's what really got the ball rolling.
So was that the first time you started like writing?
Proper,
outside of like uni and stuff like that. Oh, okay, cool. And it was concertedly with the goal in mind that I want to be a journalist.
Yeah. I want to do sports journalism. But now I'm just a bit like, I mean, I love like my job and I love what I do, and the fact that I get to speak to people and then sort of like put out their stories in like, that's what I really, really love about my job. And it was when I was interviewing the photographers for the season zine piece, that's when it hit me. I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. I've never felt so at home with like a job kind of thing.
Like and your purpose, your talent, your passions are all aligning.
Yeah, it literally came together in that moment, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to like tell people stories, and like that is so what I just loved it. And then carried on from there, and then it was really cute. It was like a really full circle moment, because like I emailed my professor when after I'd graduated, was my dissertation supervisor when I did it on cricket, and he was like to me, he was like, oh, I'm fully expect to read you in like Wisden one day, which is like a really big like cricket publication. And when I got published in Wisden, I sent it to him, and he sent me the nicest like email back. And literally makes me like cry. It was so cute. It was like
so
proper
nice.
like full circle. Like I just loved it. And like even till today, like he read my Moe Nanny piece and was like emailing me about it and stuff. But
That's sick.
I know.
Yeah, but it's such a lesson though, like, you know, to find that sweet spot in between your passion and kind of making an impact and also making a living, because we can't not think about that. I was laughing at your resilience before, but it's true. Like that's what you need. You can't give up. Like you really can't give up on your dreams. Like if you want to do something, you actually gotta go out and get that. Like, and I'm happy. I'm really happy that that's worked out for you.
Same.
Very, very happy. I'm glad. So like speaking a little bit about obviously being in the sports journalism industry, and kind of coming into it as like completely blind almost, right? Having had no experience, not even knowing that it was even possible for you to do. How has your experience been? Obviously you've you know, mashallah, you've been very successful, and you know, you started to kind of make your mark a little bit, but how have you found it being a South Asian woman, but also just being a woman in the sporting kind of field anyway? Because this is so not like, when you think about South Asian women and the typical careers that they end up doing, statistically even, like it's not very common, is it? So I can't imagine that you went into it and there's bare like South Asian girls there for you to...
Exactly. I think obviously there has been like sexism and stuff like that, but I think like I feel very lucky and privileged in that I became part of like organisations like Women in Journalism, like BComs that prioritise like stuff like that. So
you're very specific with you weren't just going in anywhere anyhow,
because and the thing is, it's like that doesn't
choosing
protect
your spaces
you from like necessarily being like a target for like the sort of like offensive attacks and stuff, but I think it's definitely sort of minimised it in the sense that I know that there are people in the industry who do look like me, who are like, you know, there for a similar purpose, to trying to work to sort of diversify like sports media and stuff. So that's something that does make it easy, and now like some of those people are like my best friends now as well, so it does help. But I think when it's also like you're in like a little bubble as well, because when I step out of that, it is completely different. It's like majority white male, and that is exactly what it is. So like I feel like I'm in a bit of a protective bubble, which I like, because I don't try and relive Cambridge. So there's that, but then it is also like
to be selective of your spaces, essentially,
and
where you put yourself,
where you sort of like, you know, where your work goes and like things like that. Because like obviously at the start of your career, like, you know, it's very easy to just sort of like get published everywhere and anywhere. And I think it's also really important, like it's important you do get published, and like, you know, each publication is like a tally to your name, but I think
make sure it's in good faith.
I think and it's hard to sort of, I guess it was a bit hard to have that, but I think I'm very, very, very lucky and like privileged in like the spaces that I'm in. Because I feel like that's protected me a lot. Thank God for that.
Do you think you have faced any like, because obviously, you know, you've written about race, particularly in sports and stuff like that. So do you think you have faced any back? Because see me, like, sorry to make this about myself again, but like Martin is obviously like our good friend Martin Aroma, Mr. Sludge Mag. So he's like one of my closest friends. So before like Sludge Mag, even from before Sludge Mag blew up, and especially now that Sludge Mag has blown up, the kind of comments that he has to, because he's very, Sludge Mag is a very left wing platform, and he's very, very clear on like kind of where he stands and the kind of narrative that Sludge Mag puts out there. And some of the comments that he gets, like he'll be showing me like, and I'm like, it's better you than me. You know, I stay logged out of even the Mango Masala account. I stay logged out because if anyone says something, my reaction would just to be like, "What's your address?"
Yeah,
and you can't do that. And I feel like if I was in your position and I'm there on writing big publications about race, because listen, this country is. And I can't imagine that you could write a piece about race in sports in a big publication and not get that kind of backlash. Every single person, I'll be like, what's your address then? If you think you're bad, give me your address. Like, I couldn't handle it. How do you handle that?
I guess.
Well, firstly, do you get much of it, like, directly?
Well, yeah, so when I wrote my wisdom piece, which was about my experiences at Cambridge, but in reaction to the Azim Rafiq Yorkshire scandal, because the sort of patterns of institutional racism were like the same. The responses I got on that was just like, people just sort of like denying that your experiences happened and stuff, but then also you just have like outright like racists like DMing you, calling you the P word and stuff like that, or saying like you're a dirty P and stuff like that, and it's mad. But the thing is, right, like, I think I'm like the most sensitive person on the planet. Do you know what I mean? I can't handle stuff like that. I hate it. I don't understand why people are like that.
We shouldn't have to handle it.
Exactly,
it's nonsense.
Exactly. And I can't
You're just trying to make a living. You're just trying to write your articles, you know.
Do you know what I mean? And I hate like anyone, ask any of my mates, I cry like drop of a hat. I can't. I've not got a strong bone.
But I don't think. But even if you are sensitive, I don't think it means that you're not strong to cry when you're getting actual racist abuse and death threats. Like,
it's mad. Like,
if I wasn't threatening to people, me too, I would cry. If I wasn't threatening to bang you in the throat, me too, I would cry.
Yeah, see, I'm the opposite, and it just comes to a point where it's like, you know, you've just got to protect yourself and like your
100.
mental health and stuff like that first before, because, you know, regardless of what you do, where you are, you're going to have backlash from people, because whether it's like true or whether they're like trolls or stuff, like, it's going to come at you, like, you know, it's not going to be like an easy ride.
It's sad that it's such an inevitable. It's sad that I'm even having to sit here and ask you, well, what about your experience as a South Asian woman in the sports journalism industry? Like, what about it?
Yeah.
You know, if it was like a white man, I wouldn't be sitting here asking him, so what about how is it being a white man? Or even a white woman, I don't think it would be.
Exactly.
It definitely wouldn't be the same thing. Yeah. Like, it's grim that's even a point of contention in itself, you know? And it's sad that it's such an inevitability.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, as well, it's so difficult because being like a brown woman in sports media, because obviously like all that in any industry really, because you can't really align yourself, because you've got the whole sort of idea of like white feminism as well, and like that sort of stuff, and it's so difficult because you can't really, where do you stand?
That ain't you,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that ain't you.
You don't really even have to like block, to be honest, but for your own like peace of mind, I'm not going into my message requests. Do you know what I mean? Like,
that's what I mean. See, I stay logged out of Mango Masala. I actually stay logged out.
I'm not going to go into him.
Like, sometimes Carlos will send a screenshot of like, oh, look at this person just saying this, and this, and I'm like, I can't even read it.
I know, I'm not going into them because the thing is, like, when my wisdom piece came out, the stuff that I got DM'd was like insane. Because, okay, so basically, it was about when I had all that stuff happen at Cambridge, right? I've like suffered with mental health for like ages, and I was like, okay, well, I literally was on the point of like, I just want to end it all, like it was just done. And I wrote that in the wisdom piece, and I'd have people DMing me being like, oh, you should have just done it, and it was just like, how
people are callous, man. People, you know that's the thing about racism.
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, there's an institutional level to it, and it's terrible and it's systemic and everything. But on a human level, the toll that it takes on someone mentally, spiritually, emotionally, like you can never understate that.
Exactly.
All for why? Because she wants to write about cricket. For why? She just wants to write about cricket, and now you're telling her she needs to die. What did she do? What did she do? You know what I mean?
I just want to watch my cricket, that's it, leave me alone.
It's not adding up, man. It's not adding up. Why are you so offended? It's mad.
I know, it's insane. Just don't go into your message requests. That's my advice. Don't do it. Don't do it to yourself. And like, put yourself in organisations and spaces where you know you're protected, because I'm so sorry, like, you know, like a white man will have that protection regardless of wherever he goes in like these spaces automatically because of the way institutional power works in this like country and in the world. So, you know, if you've got, and I'm so lucky that obviously I have these like spaces like that they
you can fall back on,
they are there now. They weren't there like probably like 10 years ago. And like, you know, be very conscious of putting yourself where you're safe and where you're protected, and don't feel guilty for it. Like, don't feel 100. Like guilty for it.
Aymen's advice.
Don't go into your message requests.
Don't look at your messages. And have a therapist on call. Set aside a monthly budget for therapy, basically. It's funny, but it's not. If I don't laugh, I'll cry.